What's going on, everyone? Today we're here with Sixtus Atabong. Now, he's out of Lubbock, Texas. He is a physician's assistant, and we're glad to talk to this brother. He originally from Cameroon. So, Sixtus, thank you for joining us on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Philip.
So, Sixtus, you coming from Cameroon, what made you say, you know what, I want to eventually immigrate to America?
Well, migrating to America really wasn't my plan. It was I grew up in a small farming village, raised by two parents who had no formal education, and they went through some very difficult times in Cameroon. Um, uh, they went through some unbearable hardships, and really what they wanted was to help us, their children, not to go through the hardships they went through. So part of that, for especially my father's plan, was to try to get me an education in the United States.
So, if you look at Cameroon and especially some areas of West Africa that has had like either colonial rule or maybe even like you say Cameroon that still has literally France. They say they're not ruling the country, but we all know what's going on with France. Um, do you feel that because of what's going on in those countries that are ruled by France, is that's the reason why the countries are kind of in the shape they're in? Because when I went to Ethiopia a few weeks ago, it seemed like the vibe was completely different from what people tell me that goes on in West Africa.
Well, Ethiopia is different from Cameroon, obviously,
Hmm.
and you have to understand Ethiopia has gone through what Cameroon is going through today.
Hmm.
Yes, there is a lot of you know influence of the colonial authorities like France and other previous colonizers of Africa or West African countries. But I think what is more important is that at some point we need to start taking control of our own destiny. I think a lot of what's happening in Cameroon today is just a lot of corruption, a lot of greed, and it's not only by France, it's also the people that are managing the country, the people that have the keys to the country. And I think personally, we need to start holding some of those people accountable because I don't have access to France. The people who have access to France are the ones that are running the country today. And if you have people in Cameroon that have no access to the resources and they're poverty stricken, disease stricken, and they have the resources to take care of those things, we need to start asking ourselves, why are these countries poor? We need to face those challenges and try to see how we can solve those problems.
Well, if you look at a country like Cameroon, Paul Biya been in power for God knows how long. Now, the continent of Africa has the youngest population in the world, but yet you have some of the oldest rulers. Why do you think people like Paul Biya could actually stay in power that long? He don't even really live in the country. I mean, he comes, do what he want to do, and goes back to a white country. Why is that even allowed?
Well, I don't think it's allowed. I don't think the people allow it. The people don't have a choice. You have leaders who have, they've used greed and power to control the economy, to control the resources, to control the people. So I don't think we can say it's allowed. The people don't allow it. The people don't have a choice. The people don't have the power to control their destiny. That's why you see some of these young kids are risking their lives to cross deserts and oceans. Some of them are dying on their way to make it to Europe, to Asia, to the United States, because they don't have any hope. There is no hope in their own country because the select few, the dictators, the people that own and manage the resources have taken it for themselves. And these kids don't have a say. So you're right. Most of the population of this country is the youthful, vibrant population, but there's no jobs for them. There's no access to opportunities. And they don't have a choice but to leave the country. So I would not say that's allowed by the people because the people really don't have a choice in these countries.
Well, the reason why I use the word allowed is because, in order for you to have freedom, you got to have some sort of, liberation, revolution. And I do see people in Cameroon as groups that's together that's trying to stand up and do something. Now, do you think those groups would take off? Like, kind of like, for instance, you have a charismatic leader in South Africa, like Julius Malema, right? And he's really making a lot of waves. And I know people on the continent is really liking some of the things that he's saying as well. I think he talked about the recent election in Zimbabwe with Managua. And he said that, listen, he's too old. He just need to run 1 year and then let, the younger people take over. Do you think if the younger people would actually take over, would that fix the problems in countries like Cameroon?
There's no way for me to know that. There's no way for you and I to know that. What I can tell you, though, is that the reason why some of these things are happening, if you look at, there's actually a recent research and report from the United Nations. And it shows that in sub-Saharan Africa, the reasons why you have some of these groups popping up is because of the negative impact that or interactions they've had with the security forces. The same security forces that is supposed to protect the people is intimidating the people. So they don't have a choice but to form their own groups and figure out a way to fight for their own freedom. So I don't know what's going to happen because I don't know what's happening in these groups. I don't, you and I cannot predict it. However, the reasons why these groups are coming up all over the country and all over the world is because they are tired. They are frustrated. They've given up hope. And some of them have nothing to lose because they really don't have anything.
Yeah, when you get people in a position that they don't have nothing to lose, that is the most dangerous people to be around. But they were put in that particular position. Cause we've done a report on the Francophone nations and how France just literally require that the majority of the country's money go into French banks, that France have first right on resources, first right on government contracts, that companies can come in and do whatever they want to do literally in countries like Cameroon who have resources. And there's no reason for Cameroonians to be poor, especially, for instance, you have oil, because you can create refineries, put a lot of people to work with refineries. Trust me, you could do a lot of work in refineries.
Yes, sir.
But yet, from what I'm hearing from someone that went there, is that France have, their, companies there, and the young people aren't getting these jobs.
Well, let me tell you something. I grew up in Cameroon, and I grew up on the farms. They have these resources. They have agriculture. My parents grew cocoa. They grew coffee. They grew bananas. We have oil, but these people have no access to these resources. And what I mean by that is they don't have access to the free market. If my father produced cocoa and they are working every day, 365 days a year, nonstop, and they have no access to the free market, the price is fixed and that's all they get. That's what I don't think is right, because like you said, the people that are working hard and they're feeding the nation. My dad worked hard for many years before he passed away. He fed the nation through sweat and toil, and most of the farmers in that part of the country, and they died hoping that their children will have access to those markets. They died hoping that their children will have a country that is free, that they can go out and truly believe that hard work pays off. That's not the case in most of this country. You can work all you want, but you don't have access to the resources. You don't have access to the free market. You don't have access to grow your family and grow your economy. So you're absolutely right. This is what's happening in some of these countries. Now, I can't speak for South Africa. I can't speak for most of the other countries. I can't even speak for Cameroon as a whole. I can speak for the southwest part of Cameroon, which is where I'm from. And I see it every day. You drive in the southwest part of Cameroon, you see nothing but just great resources. But you ask yourself every day, where are all these resources going? Why are these people poor? Why am I spending my time, my resources, sacrificing, taking people from the United States? I have built clinics in Cameroon. Mm-hmm. I'll honestly tell you that with the resources that they have in this country, they shouldn't need aid from the United States. They shouldn't need aid from other parts of the world. This country should be able to be self-sustainable. And it's unfortunate that's not happening in these countries.
Yeah, and anywhere that you have somewhere where the resources is very rich or the minerals are very rich, it seems like the people are very poor. But you look at I always say follow the money and look at who's benefiting. And it goes back to people who's always been benefiting. Someone would, when I say West, I mean European, they've been benefiting, and yet we have always been suffering. And I was saying before that if the day come where someone getting leadership where they say, no, we're going to use our resources for ourselves and we're going to sell it at market price, literally the countries will turn around overnight, literally.
That's all it takes. That's all it takes, brother. It takes someone who cares for their people. It takes someone who truly feels the pain of the people. It takes someone who wants to help the economy and the country and is doing it for a bigger purpose, not for greed, not for empowering themselves and their friends. It takes someone who truly believes in a divine purpose for our lives and for the resources that we've been gifted with.
Right. And, even if they were, quote unquote, greedy, we talk about greed, the resources are so rich there that even if you're greedy, you will make more money than what France would give you or anywhere else would give you for it. That's what they don't understand.
To go around. There's plenty to go around, but it's just not enough for certain people. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's very, very unfortunate. Now, so you came to the United States. You said it wasn't your plan at all. When you got here, what was your overall perception once you got to the U.S. coming from Cameroon?
Well, again, you have to realize I came from a village, and we had no access to running water. We had no electricity. We had no modern technology. So yes, first it was the cultural shock, and you look around and you ask yourself, what in the world am I doing here? But for the sacrifices that my parents, my family did on my behalf, I realized I didn't have a choice. I had to succeed. And it was challenging. Don't get me wrong. It was hard. And I had no support system. I had no family members. I had no friends when I came here. I was on my own. But I realized there's a country that if you work hard, you will succeed. I realized that I had to believe in myself. I had to go out there and just try to figure out how I can not only succeed in life, but to see what I can do to help others succeed. And that's what I've done over the years since I've been here. It's been over 2 decades now in the United States.
Now, I see you have on your website that you do things in different countries outside of Cameroon. I think it's Nicaragua as well. You do something?
Yes, sir.
And is it
Yes,
Guatemala also?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is that clinics that you have opened, or what are you doing in these countries?
So, again, when I came here, I had to study hard and I got an education, but for the sacrifices made on my behalf, I always felt that I had a bigger purpose, just more than just coming to the United States and working and earning a salary. So there's a saying, charity begins at home. Though I was in the United States, part of me was still in Cameroon because I remembered my village and my upbringing. So initially I wanted to go back to my village to at least try to see if I can open a clinic. I grew up in a place where we had no access, zero access to healthcare. And I opened the first clinic in 2008. My organization is called Purpose Medical Mission, which I founded with some colleagues here in West Texas. And it started in Cameroon. We built the first clinic. It was challenging, again, dealing with the corruption in Cameroon. But we worked hard and we enrolled some people in Cameroon. Not everybody in Cameroon is corrupt. You have to get, even the government leaders, you have to find the right people. So my belief and what our organization does is we believe in helping the people take care of themselves. I have been on the receiving end of charity, and I find myself now on the giving end of charity. And I feel that I understand how charity works. I think you have to teach people to fish. You have to teach them how to take care of themselves. And that's what my organization does. We went to Cameroon, we built the first clinic, and we used the resources they had in Cameroon. We financed it, and that was very successful. And obviously, because of the success of my first clinic in Cameroon, other organizations in the United States contacted us and wanted us to help in other countries. So we built the second clinic or hospital in Cameroon, and went to Guatemala, opened a clinic, same thing in Nicaragua, and we're now in the Democratic Republic of Congo building. We just finished a clinic there, build a well. But again, the idea is sustainability of care. How can we teach them how to take care of themselves? We help them train their medical providers. We help them train their nurses. We help them even train their staff so they can take care of these clinics when we're not there. The clinics are running 24/7, but we go there probably once and twice a year just to check on it. They manage everything.
And that's an awesome thing, because we definitely need, the continent to be, in certain areas, rural areas. And a lot of times, even when you kind of grew up, you sound like you grew up in a rural area.
Yes, sir.
Because you have a lot of propaganda here in the U.S., and they try to label all the continent of Africa basically in rural areas, kind of like where you grew up.
Correct. Correct.
And of course, that's not the whole continent. That's not even your whole country.
Correct.
But the people in the rural areas is the ones that need more infrastructure, more medical care, more things in the area of food supply. Is that kind of what you're alluding to?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. You go to Cameroon, you can see development that is comparable to some of the things you see in the United States. But again, in these small villages, you have the more uneducated population. Mm-hmm. You have the ones that are feeding the nation. These are very hardworking people. These are people that all they care about is just waking up in the morning, going to their farms, producing their crops, whether it's cash crops or consumables for their families. That's all they care about. But they are the ones that have no access to the most basic resources. I'm talking about resources that I personally believe every single person in this world deserves access to. Healthcare, education. They don't have those things. And nobody's paying attention to it. And you go there and you see these people. They are the happiest people. I grew up believing that I was rich. Of course, I had to leave my village to see better. My parents, all we had was our crops. We didn't have anything else. That's it. And so these are the people that need the resources the most. Unfortunately, some of these resources, if it's not people like us who are willing to go into those villages, the aid that is coming to the country, most of it never make it to these people. Never. Because some of this government actually uses the aid to intimidate their own people, to dangle it in front of them and have more control over them. And that's the unfortunate thing. And my goal is to empower them to take care of themselves. I go there being a child of that village and being a child of this of that upbringing. I see myself in these kids, and I hope they see themselves in me. I hope that they see in me hope that with hard work, perseverance, self-determination, and a belief in your divine purpose, you can make it. Even in those villages, we can make it.
Now, I'm hearing you mention, a lot of farming, and, that's a big issue also in the international news out of South Africa about the farms, because you have, people who are, let's say a lot of them are racists, feel that if the white Dutch lose their farms, that the black population is going to starve because they can't feed themselves without them. But I'm hearing you say that you're doing a lot of farming in Cameroon. So if for some reason they needed help with farming in South Africa, could people from Cameroon help them?
Absolutely. I mean, people from Cameroon, especially those farmers, are the most hardworking people you ever meet. Now, how do you get the people from Cameroon to South Africa? I don't know. What I focus on is trying to help the people. Most people want to stay where they were born. Most people naturally, this is home. If the future in Cameroon was hopeful, there's no reason for me to come to the United States. We come here in search of freedom and in search of hope. So yes, if the hopelessness and the despair in Cameroon continues as it is today, most of those people want to migrate outside, and you have the young population that are living in the villages. So who is farming this land? Most of these kids have left because they want better for their children. And they have education, and they have means of improving the lives of their future generations. But again, the parents are just trying to find hope and freedom for their kids so that they can have a better future.
It's for, as me, like I said, I was born here, in the U.S., and definitely a lot of people who watch our show, born here, African Americans.
Yes,
And a lot of us, are, obtaining passports and going, visit. And some of us want to relocate to the motherland because we don't even see this place as hopeful, for us, all the things we've been through here. I mean, if you've been here long enough, you know our history, slavery, Jim Crow, even what we still deal with now. Our kids
right.
being shot in the back. It don't matter if you become a doctor, at least, African Americans, you still can be treated no different than someone on the street that's homeless, that's a black person. You get what I'm saying? So it's just amazing to me how, and I've heard that before, that we come here and for experience, for hope and opportunity. And then we are the ones that live here, and our ancestors literally built the country, and we're looking at like, we don't feel the same way. So I'm trying to understand, like, where is the disconnect with what you guys see versus what we see? Because I will tell you, when I went to Ethiopia, I felt more at peace than I do living here.
Yeah, well, I can tell you in my book, my book that was recently released, My Father's Gift, I talk about my observation. I think as an African in the United States, we have a very unique perspective. We are coming from a place of hopelessness and despair. And I talk about racial division in the United States. I talk about my personal experiences. I talk about my observation. And it's a topic that most people don't want to talk about. But I truly believe that at some point, we need to start having an open and honest conversation on how racial discrimination or racial accusations affect human dignity, how it affects us, how it affects the way we view the world. My perspective is pretty unique, and I describe it in the book. But I think you and I have to agree that we want a future that is fair and that is free for our children. And we owe it to our children to at least start having that conversation on how can we start the process of racial healing? How can we start the process of just having a conversation without yelling at each other? I want, like you and I having this conversation, you're telling me the things that you have experienced. But in most cases, you understand that you cannot sit and have a conversation without people yelling at each other and somebody saying, I'm right, or you're wrong. It doesn't work that way. It has to be a better society for tomorrow. So we need to have this conversation like you and I are having today on both sides. Coming from Africa and coming from Cameroon, I grew up in a place with no diversity. There was zero diversity. There was zero racial discrimination. And of course, coming here, I come in a place where there's all cultures and everybody has to somehow deal with racial issues. Someone in Africa has never been exposed to that. And so in the book, I talk about my experiences and how I dealt with that, because honestly, the way I view race relations in the United States has defined the person that I am today. It's defined the kind of father I am for my children, the kind of friend I am to my to the many friends I have, and to my patients. And it's important that I hope people can get a chance to read it. It's important that we start having this conversation and say, yes, there are truly issues in this country that we have to address, we have to face. But the reason for having this conversation and the reason for understanding the history is so that we can have a better future for our children. I think there's a prime minister of Israel who once said, when history is forgotten and not taught, it is bound to repeat itself. We have to face our history, the good and the bad. There's nothing good about slavery. But through slavery and the fight for the freedom, we gained leaders who taught us how to fight for our freedom, but not only that, how to move forward and to have a society that is fair and free for everyone.
Yeah, now you thinking more so like what most of us think and most of us would want. I'm not against anything that you're saying, but unfortunately, there's a group of people in this country who's running this country and been running this country that don't want that. They believe that because of the color of their skin, they should have every advantage over everyone. And you mentioned, Israel. In this country, they don't allow people to tell them the Holocaust is in the past, get over it. But we mentioned slavery, and this country was literally built off of African slavery and maintained through African slavery. And to this day, it's still maintained through slavery in the jail system. We're told we need to forget about it. I never enslaved anyone. Why you guys talk about that? But they don't tell, Jewish Americans, we didn't put anyone in the Holocaust. And actually, that didn't even happen on American soil. That happened across the seas, right? So just like you said, even a conversation about history, that's something that happened, is very disrespectful. So people like myself have learned and gotten to the point, like, I don't really want to talk about that issue. I just want to talk about unification with our community. We're so broken. We really need to have that conversation, also connecting through our diaspora, because I feel we need each other to make it. Because
yes, sir.
I think that's the future. Because what I see in this country is just and where it's heading to. You see it. It's not good. It is not good.
Well, it just like you said, it's not good. But you also said you don't want to talk about it. And you also said we want unification. In my book, I lay down what I think is the start where we can even start having this conversation. We cannot forget the history. We cannot, it doesn't matter what somebody says. This is history. It happened. Whether we like it or not, it happened. But the reason why we have to teach and learn the history is so we can move forward. You cannot come to someone and say, let's move forward, but let's forget about what happened. Because they have to understand what happened and how we have to make sure that never happens again. So yes, we have to unite. We need each other to move forward. Our purpose in life, in the book, I talk about something called passport to purpose, is we need each other. We are part of that body of Christ, and we all have a function to play. The way that body becomes perfect is when each and every one of us is functioning at our best. So we need to address these issues, whether we're white, we're black, we're Mexicans. We have to say, this is what happened. Some of these things is still happening, but also we can't just ignore that part of the history. We have to face that history and see how we can start the process of reconciliation. We cannot unite until we know, why do we need to unite in the first place? What are the issues? Let's face the issues and let's see how we can move forward.
Well, let me clarify what I meant by that, because just so you can understand, and maybe somebody's listening. What I meant about not having certain discussions, like we, at least in the African American community here in the United States, we have for years discussed, pleaded, begged to have conversations about racism and white supremacy. And the time has come that we're done with that, because we have enough books out there. We've had many, many great leaders that God has sent, to the people to tell them about it. Now, when it gets to a point like this, that it's no time to talk anymore. You have the words in the books of our great leaders.
Yes, sir.
You at a point that you don't want to fix anything. And it's like, if if someone don't want to fix themselves, or even medically, if you giving them advice, you tell them what's the problem, what's the issue, and they don't want to take the medicine, they don't want to follow your advice, it gets to a point like, well, what could you do? You got to wash your hands with the situation, and focus only on people who want to do it, right? And
Correct.
And my thing is, if you're talking about Caucasians, for instance, if you're serious about ending racism, well, show me through public policy. Show me through you calling out those in your community who are that way. Show me the hidden things that they're doing. Show me the ones who are in neo-Nazi and KKK groups, who are in law enforcement, or who are doctors, who are lawyers. Call them out. That's when you show me you're serious about ending something. Words are not going to cut it, at least for us in the African American community. And when I mentioned throughout unification, I'm talking about through the diaspora, we're broken. Even African Americans are broken. You have some people may say, oh, Africans don't like African Americans, which that's furthest from the truth. Like I said, we are different. Yes, we grew up in different places, but we need to unify there. You have Afro Caribbeans, you have Afro Latinos. That's the unification I think that we need globally to not only help us where we live, but also help the continent of Africa. I really believe that
Yes,
Africa
sir.
is the future.
Yeah. So I agree with you in that we need to unite. However, I don't think we can give up. I we have been gifted with great leaders who have tried and have a legacy of trying to unite us. And I think for the sake of their legacy, we just can't give up. I don't know. I'm just coming from, again, a village in Africa. I just don't believe in giving up. I think we just need to keep pushing forward, whatever it takes, to try to unite, because it's what we have to do. It's good for the future. It's good for our children. We can't give up. So that's all I'm saying. I'm just saying, even if it takes, whether it's love, whatever it takes, we cannot give up. We still have leaders today who are still trying to help us to unite. And we need to fall behind them and see what we can do to help. It's all I'm trying to say.
Okay, I'm trying to get you to help me understand. Like, I don't think I said anything about giving up with
Correct.
throughout the diaspora or anything like this. So who am I giving up? Who I'm thinking? I'm trying to understand what you say I'm giving up at. I'm trying to understand that.
No. I'm just saying, because you said that we have tried and we've had good leaders, and it's past time to have that conversational dialogue. And I'm just saying.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
That's all
no,
I'm saying.
well,
I'm saying.
Well, I'm telling you,
Go ahead.
brother, just from experience, from studying history, from people who have done it from the past all the way to now. You ever heard of a statement that you can't make a crooked branch straight? Have you ever heard a statement that a tiger don't change the stripes?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I've heard that.
So when you understand, when you finally understand that people are just who they are and what they teach. I mean, this is something that I do daily. I study this. That's my part of what I do. I just think
Yes, sir.
that it's counterproductive for us to be trying to beg people who don't want to change. And I think we need to take that energy to focus on love because we don't have a lot of love in our community. We need to love our community, love, our children, raise them right. You get what I'm saying? I think
Yes,
we
sir.
need to focus more on us.
Oh yes, I totally agree with you. Yes, I'm with you.
Yeah, we don't have the energy anymore to be doing that. I mean, like, why waste that and focus, like I say, on us? Like I say, education. Our children need to know about the medical field. I mean, it's a lot of opportunities there, right? I mean, that's what we need to focus on instead of focusing on people who don't want it. I'm kind of over that already.
Correct. And a bulk of my story. My story is to inspire and hopefully, especially those of us in that are minority in the United States, and especially the kids, the young ones that are coming up. And my story is that with hard work, focusing on yourself, the self-determination, and knowing that we can do it. Yes, focusing on ourselves, uniting ourselves, and working with each other to make sure that we can inspire, like yourself. You inspire young kids. Your story, your history, being here, having this conversation with you, it's inspirational to the kids that are listening. Because we need to say, look at a kid that came from a little tiny village in Africa with parents who had no education. If he can make it, you too can make it. So that's what this is all about. Is they need to know their doctors, their physician assistants, their nurses, their lawyers, and we're going around the world and we're doing great things, and they can do it too, because they too have a purpose. Whether they came from just backgrounds that have no opportunities. If you work hard and not give up, you truly have a chance to succeed.
And I believe in that 100%. We need to do for yourself. Like I said, I think the best freedom we have is just to, like I say, create our own businesses, grow, like I say, have great families, and like you said, unify and connect. Because that, like I said, that's just what we need to do. And I think, like I said, if we do more of that, we definitely can progress a lot further than what we're doing, and get rid of a lot of that self-hate that we have in our community. So, Sixtus, how can people find your book? Just in case you mentioned your book a few times, how can they find it in case they want to pick it up?
So the book is called My Father's Gift, and it's on Barnes and Noble. It's Amazon.com. Just type My Father's Gift. You should be able to find the book. So it came out about a week and a half ago. But yes, it's available wherever books are sold, and it's called My Father's Gift.
All right, we're gonna put that book in the pinned comment. That way, you guys can go check it out. Read his story. I think it's good if you're coming from, a rural community, a rural farming community, like say in Cameroon, and then you come into the U.S. I'm pretty sure that's definitely culture shock, and that's definitely
Yes, sir.
interesting. Just even in my mind, imagine that doing that. So because some of us in rural communities in the U.S. come to the city and it's culture shock. So I can just imagine. So ladies and gentlemen, make sure you support the brother with his book. Sixtus, thank you for joining us on the show today. It was a great conversation. I wish you well for the rest of the week and the weekend.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.